Where editors once labored to preserve the illusion of continuous time and space, they now fracture it at will, creating new possibilities for storytelling.
Exactly what he said he was. A patsy.
Oliver Stone is a very wonderful director for an editor because he gives the editor free rein. He says to the editor, play jazz. Just go free form. There is a scene in JFK where Oswald walks from a house to a theater, and he said, just when you cut the scene, just make it very chaotic. So I cut the scene in what I thought was a chaotic way, and I showed him the next day, and he said, no, it's got to be way more chaotic than that. Since we cut JFK on a 3/4-inch linear editing system, one thing it had was the ability to hit these buttons and change where the edit went. So I sat there and just banged on the keys like this. And I showed it to him the next day, and he went, that's it. It's in the movie.
In XXX, I did have a new editing philosophy. I had been interested in cubism all my life. And one day, I was watching extreme sports videos. Somebody will do some amazing stunt, and they'll do it in reverse, and then they'll do it forward, and then they'll do it in reverse. I suddenly thought, what if I did it in so many angles that I didn't care whether you saw the beginning of a stunt from 4 different angles? And the way we would cut it, you would feel that you were going around the event in pieces, so that by the time that motorcycle lands, you actually experience the jump, almost as if you're on the motorcycle, as opposed to standing back in a safe distance, observing the event like you would in real life. This is not real life. This is really relishing this action moment by making a cubist editing approach.
Another change in editing is the accelerated pace of movies, a subject of controversy among filmmakers.
An encounter with 2 swords 30 years ago would have been probably done in a master shot and a couple of exchanges. Today, that encounter could evolve into 200 shots. Split-second eye blink, a blade going into a chest, slight movement of a wrist. So the audience is taken right down into this roller coaster ride of minutiae, and that's what they want.
Because kids today are raised on television and in MTV and commercials, they not only can process information faster and understand what images mean, but that they demand it.
I think the MTV generation in the 80s kind of created this style of editing. And Billy Weber and I on Top Gun, we were pushed in that direction. Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simmons were very much in tune with their audiences. They felt that that was what the audiences liked, and I think they were proven right, given the box office on some of those early movies.
And I mean, fast cutting was not invented now or with MTV. Just look at Lou Lombardo's work on The Wild Bunch.
Sometimes a cutting style is effective inside of a movie to shake you up and rattle your soul, but consistently to have that style pounding away at you like a metronome on high speed for 2.5 hours is a little bit, at least for me, maybe I'm just getting old, but it's a little bit debilitating. Now, it doesn't bother my kids, because my kids were raised on 30-second commercials and on MTV and VH1, and they were raised on video games.
I feel like I was born 80 and I'm growing backwards. So now I'm somewhere around 27, you know, I get a tattoo and I'm feeling closer to a generation that has learned to absorb information at a speed that was heretofore unthinkable, and where their rhythms are well more hungry than a traditional narrative pace.
What I'm afraid of is the tendency for everything to go by quickly. And I'm afraid of what it does to the culture. A sense of consuming something and throwing it away, as opposed to being enveloped with something. Taking the time to see and experience time in a different way.
First, one understands that he causes much of his own suffering needlessly. Second, he looks for the reasons for this in his own life. To look is to have confidence in one's own ability to end the suffering. Finally, a wish arises to find a path to peace. For all beings desire happiness. All wish to find their purest selves.
Many times editing is about when not to cut, when to have the silence, when to let the moment be itself. The musicality of Places in the Heart is one of the things that is the strongest. And I don't mean the score. I mean the musicality in the way that the scenes flow together, the ambience of that rural Texas summer, hot, with the cicadas. And there's a four-square Protestant feeling. After her husband has been shot by this drunk black kid on the railroad tracks, there were no funeral parlors, couldn't afford one anyway. In the Depression, the body was brought back to the home and laid out on the dining room table where they just had Sunday dinner. An incredibly moving moment. And we just held on her and held on her and held on her and held on her.
We would have been married 15 years this October. We had 2 children. And I never knew till just now where I had a scar right there.
And it was just exquisite, moving, beautiful. If we had cut it, it would have destroyed everything.
Editing is like poetry. It has to do with rhythms. It has to do with visual. It's visual poetry.